Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to G Bear's Off-Grid Ways, my homestead in the desert. Another beautiful day today, highs in the 70s, just beautiful. Spring weather, I love this. I love wearing very little clothes, so it's shorts and t-shirts day, and I had to go to town and get dog food, and that put me past broke even more. But at least the dogs won't be hungry. Hold on a second. What are you doing? Get down. Who told you you were a climber there? Look at this thing. She was all the way up here ready to get her feet over the top. And that's Limpy. That's the one that was in the cabin when she was a little tiny thing. She got injured somehow. Well, she actually got into my garden shed, and I think some of the garden tools fell off the side wall onto her and gave her a pretty good gouge in her left side. So anyway, that's all being the past. Let's get on with the future here. So I promised a couple of people that I would get into a little bit more about electricity, since this is the season where everybody's going to start hooking up their off-grid cabins and that stuff, and they want to do their own work at home because of how tight the economy is and money's not available for hardly anybody. So let's get on with it. We are here in my container, and we're going to talk about first AC electric. And AC stands for alternating current. That's the opposite of DC, which is direct current. So with AC, there are a few different items that you need to know about. All right, let's start with, let's see. Let's start with wire. Okay, so, hey guys. Hey, we're in production here. Do you see the sign that says quiet on the set? This is Romex, okay? And Romex has an encasement on it, and this would be 12-2 Romex. And yes, there's 3 wires in there, but one is a ground, so they don't count that. They call it a 3-conductor, but it's a 2-wire. 12-2 is what this would be listed as, okay? And in wire gauge, the higher the number goes up, the smaller the size of the wire, okay? So 14 would be smaller than 12. In residential electricity, your 2 main wires, look at this. What are you doing here? Come here. Come here. You need to go outside. No more. No more. Boy, that's Limpy. She sure loves me. Anyway, where was I? Okay. For residential size wires, you would use 12 or you would use 14. Now 14 is usually only used for lighting on a 15 amp breaker. These are 20 amp breakers. And the 20 amp breakers are reserved for outlets, receptacles like this, or the old style that are kind of ovaled on here. This is what they call the decor or decor. Okay, so Romex is never allowed inside conduit. I don't care if it's EMT, flex, or rigid. You do not put anything that's got a casing on it like this inside of a conduit. I don't care if it's plastic conduit. You still do not put Romex inside of conduit, okay? That's a code violation. The reason for that is it generates too much heat inside of the conduit, and you can end up with a fire inside the conduit, which would short out and electrify the conduit, and then somebody would go in there and grab it and get jolted. All right, so with the wires, these are wire connectors, and these are the 2 main sizes, red and yellow. Those are the ones that you would most likely use in a residential electric circuits. Okay, and those are used for tying wire like this together in boxes, which what they call junction boxes or utility boxes. You would tie those together inside of there using wire nuts. So you put black to black, white to white, ground to ground. Okay? So, since we moved over to boxes, this is called a knockout box. It's got these round circular knockouts in it that you would knock out so you can get your wires in. No, you can't just put the wire through the hole. You have to use a connector. This is a Romex connector. Okay, so this Romex connector has 2 screws, and this little part there opens up so that the wire will fit through, and you bring this down to the insulated part, tighten the 2 screws, and you don't have to be the Hulk when you tighten those around there. You just want it so it don't slip anymore. Hey! Hey! Knock it off. Knock it off. Blackie, get down. I don't want to hear any of that more out here. You guys be quiet. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, they all want to get on film. That's what it is. Anyway, you would use a Romex connector to go into this type of box. Now, this is a round box, but the reason I have it out here is because this kind, when you're using Romex, doesn't require any connectors like this. You just break out one of these little tabs, you slide that through, and you can see these little flaps inside of here. And then you would tighten the flap down to hold the wire into the box so it won't pull back out. Okay? So that's that part. Now, if you're going to use conduits of any kind, we're going to talk about different conduits. This is flex conduit. This is rigid conduit. Now, rigid conduit in galvanized is pretty much the same as galvanized water pipe. You can use both of those in electricity. You can also use black gas pipe in electricity, as long as it's not exposed to the elements outdoors. As long as it's indoors, it's okay. The galvanized protects this outdoors from rust. All right, so there's one other, and that's called, well, there's one other we're going to talk about. It's called EMT. That's Edward Mike Tango. Okay, so here is 1/2-inch EMT. Now that uses a different type of connector. That's a thin wall galvanized pipe, and you use that indoors. Like you can see, I got coming out of that box right there and running up the wall. Okay, it runs up overhead, and runs along from my lights there, and that's what that's for. Okay, so this is an EMT connector. Okay, this would slide over the EMT pipe in a 1/2-inch size, and then you tighten the screw down. And this one you want to tighten really well, because that the EMT can actually be used as the ground wire. So you don't have to pull a ground wire through the conduit. You could just pull your white neutral and your black wire through the conduit and let the conduit be the ground. Now, once this is fastened into a box like that, you tighten the star nut on the inside very well, and then that box is grounded also. So that's one way to save on wire. Okay, on this one, you actually have to bring a separate wire to it, the ground, and there's a threaded hole right there, and you would put a green ground screw in there and attach your ground wire to it. Okay, now these holes right here are for screwing the box up to the stud or the rafter or wherever else you're going to put it. All right, so next, this is a flex connector. and it's got these little threaded things on the side. That screws into the flex, and this is 1/2 inch size. So that's what this is right here. Okay, and once they go in, they don't come back out very easily. Okay, this is called MC cable, metallic clad cable. Now this has wire inside of it, much like Romex has a plastic case. This one has an aluminum case on it. Now again, on this one, you don't want to place this inside of EMT or rigid conduit or any other type of conduit. This one can be all by itself, exposed on a wall in your garage, and it can be fastened with clamps to the 2x4s, and that's it. So you save some money on those. So this is an MC cable connector. So this will go over the end of it, then you tighten this screw, and then this little unit right here clamps down on the metal casing and keeps it from sliding. Now on MC cable, they all come with these little red plastic inserts. You're supposed to slide in the end over the wires after you cut it to length, so that the wire doesn't get cut by the sharp edge of the conduit, which I'll show you on the end of this. You see how that's pretty sharp right there? That would cut wire. So on the on the flex connectors, this protects the wire by screwing into the inside like this, and then your wire is protected from that sharp edge. On the MC cable, you have to use that little plastic insert that they give you in a pack of them when you buy this MC cable in a roll. All right, other connectors. The first, this is rigid conduit, and this requires 2 of the star nuts, and that's because one would be the stop, so that this won't go all the way through the box. And then this one would go on the inside of the box, and you tighten the 2 down, and then your rigid conduit is solidly attached. No, no, no. Little climber girl, no. No. You stay outside. Hey, 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 quiet out there. Look at these two. They get fed and they get all kinds of energy. Okay, so I wanted to have my electrical panel out here that I've shown you once before in other videos, so I could show you connections inside of the electrical panel, but because I can't find it anywhere, I'm going to do without it this time. Okay, on to switches and receptacles. Okay, notice on this side there's 2 silver screws, and on this side there's 2 gold screws. Those are what tell you which wire goes where. The black wire goes on the gold screw. The silver screw takes the white wire. Just remember, white screw, white wire. Okay? And then your ground wire is over here. Usually the screw is green, and that's where the bare wire or the ground wire would connect. Okay? Very simple. Now, notice that there's 2 screws on each side. Why is that? Well, that's because if you want to put a circuit in a whole room off of a 20 amp breaker, like this one, okay, so you come off of this with your hot wire, and that would go to the first screw. It doesn't matter which one, but it would go to the first screw on the gold screw. Okay, then your white wire would go on the right across from it on the silver screw. Okay, so that's your power coming in from the breaker. Now, suppose you wanted to have another outlet just down the wall a little ways. And code normally is like every 4 feet, you got to have an outlet on a wall. So you would come off of this with a black wire and a white wire, and you'd have your grounds all ganged together in the box with a wire nut, the red one, and then one wire coming off that called a pigtail would go to this outlet. And then this wire would run through your wall to your next electrical outlet. And then you do the same thing over again. Black wire to gold screw, white wire to white screw, ground to ground. And then if you wanted to do another one, you would come off of the gold screw and the white screw and the ground screw and go to the next one. Okay? That's pretty simple. So you can add those all the way down the line if you want. Now 20 amps is a lot of power, and for most residentials, like your living rooms and your bedrooms and that stuff, you only need 120 amp breaker to handle the whole room. Because about the only thing you're going to plug into that stuff over there is a TV, a radio, a table lamp, stuff like that. If you add up all of the amps together, it never goes over 20 amps. So you're safe with a 20 amp breaker running that room. Then you go to the next room and you add another 20 amp breaker and do the same thing. Now for the lights, you would have a 15 amp breaker like I mentioned earlier, and that would only power lights. And that goes to a switch. Now this people talk about, is the switch opened or closed? Okay, so you see it says on there. Normally when you have it in the down position, it says off. So in the down position, when it says off, the screws are on the right hand side, and that's one way to remember on a single pole switch, that your screws always go on the right hand side. Okay, so in the down position, the switch is called open. Why is that? Because all this little lever does is connect those two screws together. So when it's in the down position, those screws aren't connected, so there's an opening in between the two. All right? That's why it's called an open switch. When you put it to the on position, which is up, then your two screws are connected together inside the mechanism here, and the power can flow. And that's called closed. The switch is in the closed position. All right? That's a single pole switch. I'm not going to get into three-way or four-way switches because most people will never deal with that. And if you do, and you need to know about it, leave me a comment, contact me, let me know, and I'll do a special video for you on it. Okay, so on your single pole, single phase, 120 volt breaker, you usually only have one trip lever like this, and the trip lever allows only one wire to go in here. Now don't gang up wires inside that hole even if they fit. That is against code. Only one wire can go into here, and it would be a black wire for a single circuit. Inside of your panel, you'll have a couple of bars that look like this. Now this one has a Bakelite mounting bracket on it. This would be a ground bar, and there's a difference between a ground and a neutral. Okay, I'm sorry, this would be a neutral bar, not a ground bar. The difference between a neutral and a ground is the neutral has insulation behind it. The ground is just this aluminum part connected directly to the box, to the electrical panel box. Okay, and that comes off of there and goes to a ground rod outside. The neutral is where the white wires all go. They would all go into here. Now you got one big one on the end here. That's for your incoming neutral, wherever your neutral is coming from, whether it be from your inverter or from your on-grid power coming in. The three wires coming in, two of them will be black, one of them will be neutral, and the white neutral goes into here. And then you can come off of this with another heavy-duty white neutral and go to a sub panel, which is a smaller panel, so you can power up a second panel to handle other electricity for certain individual items. All right, without confusing you too much. Next is called a GFCI breaker. GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter. Okay, you see it's got a white test button on it, and it's got a white wire coming out the end of it. Now, why is that? Well, that's because this is separate from this. Okay, so you got your hot wire that's going to come into here or come out of here and go to your circuit. And then this is what connects to your white wire. All right, now inside of this, what it does is it's usually set for a little less than ½ amp. So if there's a fault to ground, like you grabbed a hold of the hot wire or touched it with your finger, or you had a screwdriver, you had your thumb on the shaft of the screwdriver when you went to tighten the screw and the breaker was in the on position, which it should never be, but if it was, instead of you getting electrocuted, this thing would pop in the off position. Now for all breakers, I don't care if they're regular breakers or GFCIs, before you can reset them, you have to shut them off and then turn them back on again. You shut them off, oh wait, that's off, and then you turn them back on again. Okay, so this is in the off position, that's in the on position. And you see it says on right there. Remember, up is on, up is on. All right, so that covers that stuff. Very, very simple. Nothing to be afraid of on this stuff. Normally you're working with cold wires anyway, and the last thing you hook up in the panel is the hot wire that goes to your breaker. You make sure the breaker's in the off position, and then you put your wire in there and tighten the screw. And you want to tighten the screws firmly. Now on the neutral bars, it's even more important to be firmly tightened. The neutral wire is the one that usually comes loose through vibration. The hot wires very seldom do, but they do. So you do want to make sure they're both torqued down pretty good, and use a flat screwdriver. That's why these are slotted, is so that you don't use a Phillips on them, because you can't get enough torque on a Phillips screwdriver without stripping a screw. So you notice that they've got, let's see if I can get that in the light. Notice they've got slotted screws on these. So you want to use a slotted screwdriver to tighten that stuff. All right. That's about it for the AC electrical lesson of the day. There's a couple other fittings here I want to mention. This is a rigid elbow fitting. Okay, so this one, say you had this box mounted on a wall and you wanted to come out of the side of the box and go upward. So you can put this into the hole in the side and then screw in your rigid conduit to it and go upward. This is called a telephone 90. And you can always tell because it has a cover on the back here. Now inside of this, the bend is 90 degrees. So you don't want to ever try to put wire like this through one of these. It's just not enough room, and you're going to stretch the wire and scrape it against the inside of the elbow. You could end up with a short and getting electrocuted, so don't use this type on there. There are other types of elbows that you could use, but in most residential, you're going to be using Romex through holes in the 2x4. So you don't need any of that stuff. All you need are Romex connectors to connect to the box. The wire itself will bend right at the Romex connector. You can come out of the side of the box, bend the wire, and go straight up if you want. All right? Any questions, comments at the bottom? Anything I missed that you need to know at the bottom? Anything that you want to ask somebody else at the bottom? Remember, the things like commenting, the things like thumbs up, the things like sharing the video with somebody else that you know, subscriptions, all that stuff counts as money for us. And right now I am really, really hurting for money. So the more people that do that, just little things like leaving a comment, clicking the thumbs up, liking the video, things like that, that is all money for me. So please, and I'm not talking a heck of a lot of money, so it takes a heck of a lot of likes and subscribes and comments to make up some money. So I make a under $200 a month from YouTube, and I've got over 8,000 subscribers, going towards 9,000 pretty soon. And it's really not a lot of money, but I want to get that up there. So please subscribe. This is G Bear signing off.